Hey, how's it going? My name is Jesse. Welcome to the Wholesaling Secrets podcast here. I've got a great guest here, Clifford the Sorry, I can't even pronounce that because there's so many C's. Clifford the Cowboy Closer Walker. Anyways, he is a wholesaler, started off from very humble beginnings here when it came to wholesaling and real estate investing. One of the things I love that he shares on this episode is really on the mindset side of things. And some of the things that you don't typically hear. Anyways, I think there's tons of nuggets in this episode here with Clifford. So I hope you enjoy this episode here again with Clifford Walker. All right, everybody, we've got our special guest here, Clifford Walker. Clifford, how are you doing?
Ooh, doggy, what's going on, brother? I am doing just phenomenally well, man. Honored and blessed and just privileged to be on here with you today. So I'm excited.
That's really it's really humbling to know like you feel blessed. I feel blessed. Like I just asked you to come on and so the honor is mine. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Now,
For
the
sure.
cowboy hat. You
Uh-huh.
gotta tell us what this is all about.
I'm born and raised in Texas. I'm country through and through. Uh, I tell everybody country is contagious, so you better be careful. You'll be in Canada up there walking around with a cowboy hat saying "Woo doggy" pretty soon, and they're gonna be like, "What are you talking about?"
Oh man, that's awesome. And um, you know, I like things like that, and it is true to you, and it's almost part of your personal branding. Would you say?
Yeah, I would say I think that it's just become a part of I don't know who I am. It's so funny because people are so used to seeing me with the cowboy hat. When I don't have one, you will be surprised how many people do not recognize me. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it's hilarious.
So you
Uh,
got to show up to a lot of these conferences and events to make sure you have that cowboy hat on.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so before real estate, tell us your backstory. How did you get into it? I know you sort of have a truck driving background here. What was the most challenging aspects of that, and then how did you gravitate towards real estate investing?
For sure. So it's kind of funny how I got into real estate. So as you mentioned, I was a truck driver before I got started in real estate. So I did truck driving for 7 years, and I absolutely hated it. I hated every bit of it. I really did. And so it's just funny how God works sometimes too, because I'm a firm believer. If you're not doing the thing you're called to do, it will eventually lead to the thing that you're called to do. But anywho, I was driving in West Texas. So if you've never been out there in West Texas, like there's nothing but cotton fields and like this orange dirt and oil fields. Like there's nothing out there. Anywho, so I'm driving down through West Texas and I hear, ironically, a podcast about a guy out in New York that was just making a killing wholesaling real estate. And so it's so ironic to me, like hindsight 2020 or whatever it's called, right? Like I wasn't even into podcasts and personal development like that at the time. It just so happened to be one of the only like radio stations that were playing because we were in the middle of nowhere. And so that's the only thing that I could get signal on. And so that's how I just know it was nothing but God there. But he's talking about wholesaling real estate, how much money he was making. And I'm just sitting on the edge of my seat listening, like mind blown. And he's talking about all this stuff. And then that was it. That one podcast, I was hooked. Um, I ended up coming back home off the road and telling my wife, "Hey, babe, we're about to start wholesaling real estate." And she's like, "What? What are you talking about?" And then I just went down this crazy rabbit hole, going to every meetup, seminar that I could attend, every challenge that I could go to, and yeah, it's been history.
I think a lot of people may be able to. echo that kind of a story where they're sitting around or driving. Certainly my co-founder, Kevin,
Mhm.
he started also real estate investing, and same thing was a podcast. And I think I might have been same thing as well, or,
Yeah,
or something. Maybe it was a meetup or something like that. Um, was there something that you think stuck out about that podcast that caught your
mm,
attention? And maybe it's not that big of a deal to you anymore, but
yeah,
what was it? Was it just the money? I mean, honestly, like a lot of
yeah.
time.
I wish I could say something really poetic or something of that nature, like something really in depth. But yeah, I would agree with you. I think it was just the thought of making more money, just making a better living and having things. So I think that I jumped into it for the monetary side of things, but I stay in it for the impact that we make because now that I'm actually in it, I've been doing it 6 years full time now, and the impact that I make with families is much greater than me lining my pockets, quote unquote. So yeah, I think it was just me wanting a change too, because if we go back to the season that I was in that moment, I was away from home, driving over the road. It was a lonely, kind of isolated life where you're literally sitting in a truck every day. You're living in a truck, right? Um, you're eating at truck stops, you're showering at truck stops. Like, I'm away from my wife, I'm away from my kids. And yeah, I was just miserable. So the thought of making more money and being home and not gone over the road is, I think, what stood out to me the most.
And help paint a picture for us. I mean, it's easy to say, "Hey, I heard a podcast," and then the rest is history. But I mean, what was that really like? Those first few months. A lot of people listening might be in that position where like,
Yeah,
okay, it worked out for Cliff. That's great. But
yeah.
like, help paint us a real picture. I mean, like,
Mhm.
I remember when I first started, I lucked out. I really did. And if I did not luck out my first deal, my first three deals, it was just from one mailing campaign. I don't think I'd be doing this right now. And
Wow.
so, like, what did that look like for you? And he like give us some grit to that and help us sink our teeth into what were the first few months looking like? You come home, you tell your wife, "Hey, let's do wholesaling."
Yeah, I think there's several ways that I can kind of talk about, or several points that I can hit on. Number one is that I attended every meetup and training, and I eventually invested in myself and got a mentor. I think that was massive because that really helped shortchange my learning curve, if that makes sense, because I literally just followed his model. That's number one. Invest in yourself. It's so insane to me how many people want to start a new career, they want to do something different, but they're not willing to invest in themselves. I think about college. If you want to go to be a doctor, you typically have to pay for a university, you have to spend years training before you even make a dollar, right? And if you want to be a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, right, any of these engineers that require these really high level degrees, you're going and spending thousands of dollars on an education to come out of there with a whole bunch of debt and maybe a good job, right? So, yeah, invest in yourself, number one. Number two, I don't know if I share this quite often, but when I was at one event, it was a 3 day event that I was in. And then on Sunday, the last day of the event, I actually went to my Facebook profile and I changed my occupation to real estate investor. And so for me, that was a psychological movement. Like, that was me shifting gears from truck driver to real estate investor. That one small step, that one small action that I did, I think truly transformed my life, right? Because that was me burning the boats. That was me saying, I am committed to this next season of my life, no matter what that looks like. And I'm going to give it 110%. So many people want things, but they're not willing to jump all in. You know, when you go and you just ease your way into a pool, like it just makes it so much brutal, right? Because it's cold, you're shivering. Like first you put your feet in, then you go up to your knees, then you go up to your hips. But when you just jump in, you get that initial coldness, that initial shock over with as quickly as possible. Am I making sense? And so that was me doing that. And so I would encourage anybody that if you're listening to this and you're saying, hey, I want to be a full time real estate investor, change your occupation. It's free, it costs you nothing. You can go on there and you know what it does? It sends a notification to all of your friends and family that, hey, Jessey has updated his Facebook profile. And so all of your friends and family are going to see that, okay, he changed it to, you know, CEO or full time real estate investor or whatever you did. And that's you claiming that, declaring that into the world, into the atmosphere. And it moves mountains, I believe, like people wouldn't imagine. That one small thing is actually a massive thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that. That was definitely an intimidating moment for me to change, my role or declare it on LinkedIn or something like
Yeah.
that. But that's really interesting. You mentioned jumping right into things,
Hmm.
and that's something I personally do as well. And it sounds like you as well. And some people that can be a little overwhelming. How
Oh,
would
for
you
sure.
sort of, how, what would you, what sort of advice would you give somebody who says, I'm not that kind of person that'll just like full in and commit to it? And there's a lot here on, I'm risking this, I'm still doing this, I'm not fully committed, but I want to make it work,
Yeah.
and they're one of those people that do need to take the time and are very strategic about
Yeah.
things that they do. So how would you suggest somebody to approach it that comes from that sort of background?
I believe that movement creates momentum. And so I think that there's a fine line here because, yeah, you don't want to jump into the pool and the pool's full of sharks, right? Sometimes it does require strategic thinking, strategy, planning. But at the same time, we don't want analysis paralysis either. And so I just know for me specifically, I don't like overthinking. And so the way for me to overdo it or not overdo it, stop overthinking is just by me taking massive action. Right. And so I think that's something that people are going to have to figure out on their own. But I do know that you need to make a commitment. I was reading a book recently and it was called The Wealth That Money Can't Buy. And there's a chapter in there where he talks about the statement, I'll try, right? So many dreams were lost because somebody didn't commit and they said, I'll try. When you just simply say, I'll try, you're basically giving yourself a cop out already to say, oh, well, I tried it and it didn't work. And it's insane how many people will fight and claw to keep their same level of living, but they won't fight and claw for a whole new level of existing or opportunity, if that makes sense. So I don't know if I was answering the question there, but I think that yeah, people just got to figure out, hey, find that balance and move. Just start moving. You're gonna have to take imperfect action.
No, I think that's it. It's sometimes that easy, and action has solved a lot of problems for many
Yeah,
people. And
agree. Like I was sharing an example. I was at an event and I was speaking, and I was sharing the analogy with starting real estate with getting your driver's license, right? I don't know how it is in Canada, but here in the US, right, you normally start driving the car before you go get your driver's license. So this means you're going to be hitting the brake, hitting the gas pedal, hitting the brake, hitting the gas pedal. You're going to be hitting curbs. You're going to be, drifting in and out of your lane because you're trying to get a feel for it. But somewhere along the line, it's not a set time or a set date or, a certain number of hours behind the wheel. But at some point, while you continue to drive and you continue to hit those curbs, you're just going to realize like, wow, I'm not hitting curbs anymore. Wow, you know what? I'm able to stay in my lane and just keep the gas steady. And it's at that moment you go and get your driver's license, right? So I don't know why people think that it's the other way around. You don't go get your driver's license and then you start driving. Like get in the trenches, get behind the wheel, start driving, and then all of the fears and doubts will start to go away and you'll realize like, hey, I'm actually doing deals. Like I'm actually helping people. I'm actually doing this or doing that. And so, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that,
I agree. It's,
but
with action, I mean, a lot of times, if you just make a step forward, I mean, it covers up a lot of that fear that you have, and you don't even focus on that fear because, like you said, next thing you know, you got a marketing campaign out there, you're cold calling, whatever it is, you're hitting the phone, and you figure out and you learn some stuff, or you're actually getting deals done. I mean, there's only upwards you can really go from there. Um,
exactly.
Cliff,
Mhm.
what do you like speaking about when you get invited? What do you talk about?
This right here, I love to talk about the mindset, because I think that when you break real estate down, and I'm sure you would agree, it's just basic numbers, right? You're going to analyze a deal, you're going to run some numbers, you're going to make your offer, right? But so many people struggle with getting the mindset right and realizing that, okay, we have to overcome the analysis paralysis. We have to overcome the fear, the limiting belief, the self doubt, and understand that your destiny demands development, right? Like whatever it is that you're destined to do, that you're called to do, you have to sharpen that axe. I love the quote from Abraham Lincoln. He says, if I have 6 hours to chop a tree down, I'm going to spend the first four sharpening my axe, right? And so that's kind of the angle that I love to approach or talk to help people break into, the best version of themselves.
Yeah, yeah. Let's switch gears here. Let's
Mhm.
talk about real estate wholesaling, or real estate investing in general. Can you provide us a real world example of a deal you've recently worked on, and again, help us understand what did that look like, some of the steps involved.
Mhm.
I know you're involved in so many things, not only
Yeah.
building a community and speaking, and now you got to think about your real estate investing business as well. So, anything that's of recent that you can share with us that you worked on.
Yeah. I would like to say this when it comes to real estate specifically, I always encourage people to pick a lane to start out with, right? Like whether that's wholesaling, whether that's fix and flips, whether that's getting laser focused on land, what it sounds like you did, and then even buying rentals, like all of those are different lanes. Pick one. Pick one and get really good at it. And then when you get good at it, then start branching out into other things. I see so many new investors getting started who they're trying to fix and flip, they're trying to wholesale, they're trying to buy rentals, they're trying to do novations and sub twos and all of these other creative strategies. And they end up just spinning their wheels or going in circles, right? Get the basics down, get laser focused on one thing, and then systematize what you're doing and then start branching out, right? Uh, and I'm sure that's where your platform can really shine because, too, when you're rocking and rolling, specifically for me with wholesaling, a CRM is crucial. It is crucial what we're doing. And so having that stuff in place to where, okay, we're rocking and rolling, we have systems in place, we have lead management in place and all of those things that we need. Now I can say, all right, let me start taking on this flip or let me start, throwing these rentals in the bag and then going from there. So I think that would be one of the biggest advice for for anybody getting started because It doesn't matter which lane you pick. They're all incredible. They all work. They all have their pros and cons. Just pick a lane. Pick one.
Yeah. I use this line frequently where I hear everything doesn't work and everything works, and it's like, and
Exactly.
that's typically on the marketing side, uh, but I mean, you pick a lane like you said, and go an inch wide and a mile deep, and
Mhm.
learn that. So I completely agree. But on your end, have you done a wholesale deal recently? Again,
Yeah.
can you sort of walk us through what that deal actually looked like?
Yeah, I do quite a bit on a regular basis. Um, I'm trying to think like right now, I think the biggest shift that I've made with 2025 in marketing, speaking of marketing, is we do a lot of on market deals now. So deals that are already listed on the MLS, we go in there and we can wholesale those. I do a lot of probate deals as well. So why I like to do the on market is because it gives me number one access nationwide, so I can go and jump into any market pretty much same day if I want to. Um, so it really makes it convenient, and I believe that it's one of the easiest ways for any new investor getting started. Mhm.
All right, so I hope you're enjoying this episode here with Clifford, the Cowboy Closer. Nonetheless, Clifford is a big, advocate for systematizing, as he mentioned in this episode so far, and that's exactly what we do here at Pebble. When it comes to tracking all the properties that you're marketing to, all the details about the property, to documents associated with them, to your follow-ups, and tracking where it is along the acquisition pipeline. This is really important to actually move and scale a business. And sometimes I think when we think about scaling, it's not as big or of a deal, but it's more of like running an efficient business. And how do you pull yourself slowly out of a lot of the operational stuff? And that's where something like Pebble comes into play. Me and my team have focused very hard on building a system that is usable and that is easy to use, where you'll actually use it. Again, this includes tracking your marketing campaigns to all the property records you're ever going to do marketing towards, all your leads, your follow-up, email, texting, phone call, all built into one platform from the ground up. This isn't a skin over any existing platform. And we get that ability to continue to tailor the platform for real estate investors. So if you're interested in learning more, head over to pebblerei.com and book a demo with us. Anyways, enjoy this rest of this episode here with Clifford Walker. On market, why does it make it easier? Because you don't need to spend so much time upfront on the marketing side of things, or
Exactly. Like when I started back in my truck driving days, I was cold calling and I was cold calling for hours. I would literally be driving down the road, like hammering the phones for hours. But anywho, many people aren't going to do that. That sucks. And there is no fun in that, right? But I can almost guarantee you this. If somebody goes and filters the properties that have been sitting on the market for 30, 60, 90 days, and they call 30 to 40 agents a day, that's it. I guarantee you within 30 days they'll have a deal. I absolutely guarantee it. And so it doesn't take as much time. It still takes time. It still takes work and effort. Like it's not bulletproof, I guess you could say. But volume, consistency, and follow up, those are three things that I preach. Um, basically, if they have access to a computer, if they have a cell phone, they can get started in this industry literally for whatever the cost of their phone is and their internet service.
you initially started by cold calling like a madman, like you said here.
Mhm.
Looking back, if you were to do some marketing strategies, what would you recommend somebody to start with, other than looking at on market?
Mhm.
Are there some other different channels that you enjoy um, using to get deals?
We still cold call till this day. 6 years in, we still cold call. It's an old school method. It works. Anybody that starts with the team starts with cold calling. We do, of course, like the PPL leads, the paper leads, and stuff as well. Um, Probably what I'm going to say here is probably not the most glamorous thing that you hear every guru say. I would actually venture to say start with cold calling. The reason being, and maybe you would agree, there's a lot of communication that goes into these deals, especially when you're direct to seller. You do not want to go and start paying two, three, four, $5,000 a month for PPL leads or PPC leads or whatever, and you don't even know how to have a quality conversation with the seller. Like, cut your teeth, banging out the phones, get your reps in, get practice having conversations, and then go and start spending money on some of those high dollar leads. Because I have seen so many new investors spend thousands, and I'm not exaggerating, in those lead channels, those marketing channels to lose their tail. And it's not that they didn't work, it's because they didn't know how to have a conversation. Does that make sense? Or would you
No,
agree with that?
I 100%, think that's exactly yeah. You gotta cut your teeth and really learn the language, learn language and understanding a lot of the things, generally how to communicate with other people as well. This is a different kind of a world that you're getting yourself into, so I
Exactly.
totally agree with that.
One of
Do
my coaches told me the quality of your conversations will determine the quality of your life.
like that.
But
Yeah,
nobody wants to work on communication. If
right.
we launched this podcast and you said, "Hey, Clifford and I are going to talk for an hour about communication," two people would view this, and that would be you and me.
Right,
Maybe my mom. I don't know,
right,
right?
right, right.
But because it's not sexy, right? Communication doesn't sell, but yet communication affects every single area of our life, not just with our friendships, but with our spouses, with our business partners, with our
Yeah.
sellers and the people that we serve. It is so connected to every single thing that we do.
Cold calling. How do you feel about things you mentioned, PPL, PPC? How do you feel things like direct mailing or postcards and things like that?
I've never had good luck with postcards and direct mail. And I got to a point where we were spending quite a bit on direct mail just to break even. I don't know if it was just me or my systems, or I just didn't crack the code on it. I don't know what it was, but it just did not work well for me. And I know other people that I'm in masterminds and stuff with that are crushing it in direct mail. And so I don't think I just got that secret sauce when it comes to that marketing strategy. So yeah, I kind of killed it off and stayed away from it.
It's one of those things again. Everything works and everything doesn't work,
Exactly.
and I'm glad you're very transparent about that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, you emphasize the importance of you mentioned earlier volume, consistency, and follow up.
Yes.
Volume. So you play a volume game
Yes, sir.
here, helping us understand what kind of volume are you talking about,
Mhm.
and what does consistency mean to you, and what does follow up mean to you? Can you give us something tangible for each one of those?
Oh, that's amazing. So, yes, I preach volume, consistency, and follow up. I think that's the key to this business and almost with any business, in my opinion. So, when I say like volume for me, if we take cold calling, for example, we're going to call thousands of people, right? Just to talk to, 100 of them or 90 to 100 people before we get a closed deal. With our MLS offers, we're going to probably send out 100 offers a day, just to get, you know, 5 to 6 contracts a week, or not a week, a month doing that. And so that's what I mean when I say volume. Like, we're sending out quite a bit of offers uh, on that front. So it's funny when people say, "Oh, I've called 3 people." Or this one gets me a lot too. So I used to do bandit signs. I would put out 300 bandit signs a week by myself, right? And so it was insane when people tell me that, oh, yeah, I put out 22 bandit signs last month. I'm like, okay, let's see if we can up the volume a little bit. So that's what I mean by that. Um, Consistency. If you put out 50 bandit signs, you know, a day, that's going to be a lot different from 50 bandit signs a week versus 50 bandit signs a week. So we need to find a level of consistency that we can keep to increase our volume, right? Is extremely important. And then follow up is the money's in the follow up. The money is in the follow up. This is where you need to have a CRM like yours. So that way people can follow up. It is very, very, very rare that I have a one call close, meaning that I'm going to call a seller for the first time and get that property under contract, right? That's rare for me. And so I have to follow up with that seller or that lead every couple of weeks. Even with my MLS offers, I'm sending them an offer. They could decline it, but if that property hasn't sold and it's still sitting on the market for 2 weeks, well, we're still following up. Hey, let you know our offer's still good. Is your seller interested? What's going on? We're noticing that it hasn't sold. So we are still following up with these leads. And that's what really increases our deal flow.
Hmm. Clifford, how big is your team? You're doing a lot. Not
Mhm.
only are you running a real estate investing team, you've got an active business around real estate, a community. You talk. Help us understand, what does everything look like for you now? 6 years later, I don't know, is it
Mhm.
6 or 7 years later
Yeah.
after hearing that episode in the truck there? What does everything look like now for you?
We're a small but mighty team. There's only five of us.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
We're
what kind of hats do they wear
um
other than
so
cowboy hats?
I do a lot of the cowboy hat. Um Dispositions, I handle a lot of that on my end. So I still work a lot in the day to day. I don't mind. Um, I got an acquisitions guy, transaction coordinating as well, somebody that kind of works on marketing. So there's just a few different little hats that everybody kind of manages, and everybody just stays in their lanes. But it's a small and mighty team, in my opinion. I think that people should focus on efficiency more than trying to build a massive team.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
running it as lean as possible. Now, are you focused more on that wholesaling lane?
Mhm. So wholesaling is the majority of what we do, and how it we talk about staying in my lanes, right? So let's say we come across a deal that's an amazing flip. Well, instead of me flipping the property, I'm just going to pass that baton along. And I'm going to say, hey, Jesse, I just got an amazing deal. Would you be interested in joint venturing and partnering with me on this flip? And this way, I can pass that flip along to you. We're still partners on it, and I can stay in my lane and keep moving. So this way, I'm not distracted by every shiny thing. Even on my rentals, I have a really strategic buy box that I use. And if something fits in that buy box, then I'll take it down for a rental. So this way I'm not getting distracted. And so that's why I say focus on efficiencies too. And then also, I'm a huge component in partners. Real estate is a relationship based business. The more hands you shake, the more money you make, in my opinion. And so, find people that you like, that you trust, that you enjoy working with, and work together on that stuff. I don't need to have 100% of every single deal. You know, I don't. I'd rather pass that baton along to you. We split it 50-50, and we keep trucking along.
You've been in the wholesaling game for a while now, and there's tons of content out there. There's a lot of information out there. So a lot of people hear a lot of the same things. Can you share with us maybe one or two things that you typically don't hear? Maybe it's very nuanced. Maybe it's a
Mhm.
very it's a very specific tactic that you use
Yeah.
that you just don't hear. Can you share something like that with us?
So I think that, or let me rephrase this. Maybe what I believe is that real estate investing and what we do is that we are building generational wealth by serving other people. A lot of the families that we help and that we talk to are going through a tough season in their life, right? Maybe they're going through foreclosure, divorce, or probate. They inherited a property. They don't need somebody to come in there and pray on them. They need somebody to come in there and pray with them. And so when you focus on serving, that changes the game for you. Every single thing that we do is built around serving other people. Um, and when I go into any conversation on how can I serve you, I don't actually need to be some type of grand closer because I'm not focusing on getting a sale. I'm focusing on serving, right? And I'm focusing on figuring out what is the best option for that person. And so I think it's very important to put that at the forefront of what you're doing when you're getting started in real estate investing, right?
Can you give us an example of maybe something you said or a deal that you've done where you've actually, not actually, but where you were very specific about in your mind serving them, helping them figure out a solution? What does that look like?
So, say for example, I had a property in Mesquite, Texas, where it was a mom. It was the son's house. The son actually went to jail. And he went to jail, and the house was going into foreclosure. They were trying to sell it, but his mom was elderly and the house was just packed with stuff, right? So we were able to work out a solution that worked best for that property, but she was older. She couldn't move. And so we ended up lining up movers, helping her move, going over there, checking on her, just things of that nature, just going the extra mile there to help her get things in order and fares in order. We've helped people find new places, whether that's assistant living or, rental properties, or we kind of direct them in certain places like that. And then sometimes just going through the options, right? Like I tell them, hey, my cash offer might be a little lower. Your best bet might actually be list this on the MLS so you can get top dollar for this property because you're not facing foreclosure. You have, 60, 90 days to sell this property. So go ahead and list it on the MLS. And if it doesn't sell, then come back and talk to me for a lower
Mm.
cash offer. So again, I've done that several times. Like, hey, I want what's best for you to put more money in your pocket, not necessarily my pocket.
Okay. I mean, everything you said here, I think a lot of people kind of look at you and admire the things that you've done and how you approach things. And help us understand, what do you hate about real estate investing?
Going into some of these houses,
Yeah.
some of these houses are disgusting. They're absolutely disgusting. That's
Do you
that's
have
one
to go
thing.
into some of these houses?
No, a lot of the stuff now we do virtually, so you can do it that way. Um, I hate when deals fall apart, Deals will fall apart. I think that's the ugly thing that people aren't telling everybody. I would say, for example, 7 out of every 10 deals might actually close on a good month. So that means I'm going to have, three, maybe even four deals fall apart. I recently had one. This was a probate house where it was in Fort Worth, Texas. Um, and the siblings just could not come to an agreement. They could not, they were arguing about the money, how much they were going to get, how they were going to divide it up because there wasn't a proper will done. And so, yeah, they couldn't come to an agreement. And because they couldn't come to an agreement, they fell out and they were all refusing to sign. So, um, that's something that was just completely out of my control. And I hate when that happens because now nobody's going to get anything. Like that house was behind in taxes. And so eventually that'll go to the city, and that family loses that house. They don't get the wealth that their grandfather had built by owning that property. We lose a deal. We didn't make money. The team didn't make money. So that stuff like that bothers me, and it sucks. But it happens.
Hey, I mean, these kind of sobering realities make the glory that much better, though.
Exactly.
Um, Clifford, thank you so much for coming on the show. But before you leave, I want you to talk to us a little bit about the Real Estate Coral Investor
Wow. Yeah.
Network. Did I pronounce it correctly?
The corral, yes, sir.
Corral
Yeah.
Investor Network. And how can people engage with you, Clifford?
Mhm. They can find me on YouTube, social media, Clifford Walker, the Cowboy Closer. I'm not too hard to find. The Real Estate Corral is a private community that we have where I offer mentorship, and I give new investors access to private money lenders, people that they can partner with, and just so much more to help them achieve financial freedom through real estate investing. And so I do live events in person. I do virtual 3-day master classes where we deep dive into, the strategies that I'm doing and how I'm doing them, where I actually go over numbers and break things down. So they can find all those links in my link tree, and in the descriptions typically on my YouTube channel.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure we link that in the show notes. Clifford, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing us with your story. The
Pleasure.
obviously the mindset you carry very very strongly, and I think that's a message you're trying to spread
Yeah,
as well. So we really appreciate you on this show.
absolutely, brother. It was my privilege.
Thank you. Cheers.
Later.